Right, a very good afternoon once again for all of viewers who are joining in. We're taking yet another look at a practice paper. As you can see on the title when you're joining on live stream. Today we have two papers that we'll be going through for today's session. We'll be wrapping up where we stopped off in our previous live stream session, looking at the vocab section of Maha Bodhi School before moving on to the grammar, clues, and editing passage. And if time permits, before we take a break for lunch, we might be able to cover the initial parts of the Henry Park Primary School paper. Okay, so once you're ready, I hope everyone has their writing materials on hand with you. You can have your writing materials, pen and paper, maybe even a notebook will be good as you take down some points as we discussed them. Okay. In our last live stream session looking at this paper, we talked about the first three vocab questions over here and each of their definitions. We're moving on to the fourth question, our vocab MCQ for today, starting off with question 14. Okay. Right, hopefully everyone is ready. If you are ready, if you're writing materials with you, you can put a thumbs up. Okay, so I know that it's good to carry on. Okay. Hello, welcome for those who have just joined in. Once again, looking at the vocab section of the Maha Bodhi School, Primary 5 end of year 2023 paper, booklet A of paper 2. Let's get started. Question 14. Even the doctors were surprised at David's sudden blank of fever and could not find the cause. Okay. David's sudden blank of fever. We have four words over here. What do each of their definitions consist of? Firstly, oops, it's a bit blurry. Alright, okay. Onset is the occurrence of an illness. When an illness begins to occur, when it starts or begins, maybe, is there a better word I could use over here? This might be a bit too technical. A beginning of illness, right? A start of illness. When the illness first begins, right? You start showing symptoms, start displaying signs and symptoms of contracting an illness. That is the onset of it. The outlook is the forecast, prediction of what's about to happen. For example, if you are down with COVID for the first time, the outlook might be pretty grim. For the next couple of days, you'll lose your voice, you'll start having a sore throat, you start running a low fever. Okay? So the outlook is the forecast or prediction of what will happen in the future. A diagnosis. A diagnosis is a professional opinion or judgment. It's a professional judgment or opinion usually made by the doctor or medical professional over here. For example, if you're diagnosed with a fever, diagnosed with the cold. And finally, occurrence, that means when something occurs, an instance of. Oops. When something happens and happening. Okay. So among these four words over here, which best cover the idea of the doctors being surprised by something sudden? Anyone in the chat think you have the answer? What were the doctors surprised by? What happened David suddenly that surprised the doctors? It would be the sudden onset of fever. When there's surprise sudden beginning of illness that surprised the doctors. Okay? If the doctors are surprised, that means it was contrary to their diagnosis, it was contrary to their judgment or opinion over here, hence the surprise. Any questions for question 14? Otherwise, we can proceed to our final vocab question over here. Justin is blank. I wish he would stop harassing me. Some words that some of us may be unfamiliar of. To harass someone, to harass is to cause them distress. Okay. To cause distress to a person, to affect their livelihoods. So that is to harass a person. These four options over here are all idioms. For idioms, what we have, the first one, we have a piece of cake. When something is a piece of cake, that means it is something that is simple and easy. Okay? For example, this question is a piece of cake. It's very simple to finish or to complete. A thorn in my flesh. What does it mean to be a thorn in your flesh? Okay. If you have gotten a splinter before, or you've held a rose by its stem and actually gotten pierced by a thorn, something that is irritating or annoying. Something that's irritating, something that's a nuisance. The apple of your eye. Someone who is the apple of your eye is someone who you admire or have feelings for. Someone you admire or someone you like. You could say the prettiest girl in my school was the apple of my eye, or the handsomest boy in my school is the apple of my eye, right? Someone you admire or you like. And finally, to blow your own trumpet. To blow your own trumpet is to boast, and to exaggerate your own accomplishments. To exaggerate your own accomplishments, to boast is to blow your own trumpet. So among these four options over here, for these four idioms, which is the best idea of Justin causing distress to me? When someone is causing distress to you, when someone is harassing you, which option do you think it will be? 1, 2, 3, or 4? It would be someone that is a nuisance, someone that is irritating, right? So someone who is a thorn in your flesh. Okay, did y'all get it right? If you did, you can give yourself a pat on the shoulder or give yourself a round of applause for getting this answer right. Okay? And for the remaining three options, while these idioms may not fit in this sentence, it is just as important to learn them well because you never know when they might show up again for one of your questions. All right. So for the other three, also make sure you take note what do they mean over here and how you can use them in a sentence. Any questions for our vocab questions over here? If not, we can proceed with the next section, which is your vocab close. For our vocab close, COVID-19 has changed life for people everywhere. People adjusted to new norms like social distancing, routine temperature checks, and washing their hands more. businesses around the world faced big changes too. A few companies around the world took their response to the virus in an unexpected direction. These companies then decided to manufacture goods or equipment that can help the fight against COVID-19. LVMH is the biggest luxury company in the world. Back then, when the French government warned the public that hospitals in Paris might face hard sanitizer shortages, LVMH converted their perfume production lines to produce hand sanitizer. So let's go through each of these words that you should be replacing. Firstly, with adjusting all the way back to paragraph 1. To adjust is to respond to changes in your conditions in your environment. Let me take down the definition too. To adjust is to respond and accommodate in your environment or surroundings. Which of these four answers over here carries the idea of responding to changes in your environment? To adjust, to respond to these changes over here. To alter and to modify both carry the idea of changing something, usually a product, from its original state. For example, if you bought a pair of jeans that were too wide for you, you will alter the waistband slightly such that it will be thin, it will be narrow enough for you to be able to wear the jeans comfortably. Right? You will bought a new pair of jeans or pants. Right? So alter or to modify it to change it from its original state. Not really the case over here. To respond to changes in the environment would be to adapt. People adjusted to new norms like social distancing, routine temperature checks. What does routine mean? A routine is something I do often. As a part of a schedule or as part of regulations. Something you do often as part of a schedule. So which of these four words over here, a usual, regular, ordinary, or standard, do you think best replaces that word of routine temperature checks? It would be option 2, regular temperature checks. Businesses around the world faced big changes too. A few companies around the world took their response to the virus in an unexpected direction. Unexpected, something that is against expectation. Which of these four would then be the case? Something that's unexpected. Abrupt is sudden. Something that is startling is something that is shocking. That is alarming. Something that is astonishing is something that is surprising. While something is unanticipated is something that is unforeseen. No way of predicting would happen. So which of these four words over here best carry the idea of an unexpected direction? A direction that you did not expect or you did not see coming. That would be option 4. Unanticipated. Okay, welcome for those who are just joining in once again, taking a look at our vocab close over here. We're on question 3 now, 18 right now, talking about unanticipated directions. These companies then decided to manufacture goods or equipment that can help the fight against COVID-19. To help. So looking for a word over here to replace the word help. Simple enough, right? What does it mean to help someone? To help someone is to lend assistance to support or to lend assistance. Among these four options, which carries the idea of lending assistance or supporting someone? To lend assistance or to support is to aid, right? To aid. To help a person. To help the fight against COVID-19. LVMH, the biggest luxury company back then when the French government warned. Right, so looking to replace the word warn over here. Maybe it's out of the frame. So in to warn the public, we have 4 options in question 20. To alert, advise, inform, or to remind. Okay. So what does it mean to warn someone? To warn is to provide information or to notify. Or provide information. Does it simply mean to inform then? Does warning mean to inform? Not usually, right? To warn someone is not just to provide information, but it's information about potential danger or potential threat. Or threats. Okay. To notify or to provide information about potential dangers and threats that are lying out there. Okay. So inform over here is too neutral in its connotation. It's not used correctly over here. Okay. Which of these 4 over here would then these remaining 3 answers carries the idea of notifying or providing information about potential dangers and threats. Options 1, 2, or 4. This would be option 1, to alert, to call attention to a potential danger or potential threat about public hospitals in Paris facing hand sanitizer shortages. Any questions? Okay, if there are any questions, please feel free to raise them in the chat, even if it's for some of the earlier questions along the way. Or if any general questions you come across before in your school papers or practices that you're not too sure about or you don't really understand, please feel free to drop them in the chat so that we can discuss them together as well. Okay, the paper we covered today serves as a launching point for us to discuss some of these definitions and words. However, you can also add in your own inputs, and if you have any questions, any burning questions you have about this paper or any papers you come across before for questions, please do not hesitate to raise them in the chat. All good? Alright, so with that, let's proceed to the next section, which is your grammar close. With our vocab close, we need to follow up with our grammar close. This grammar close talks about a historic animal in Southeast Asia. Okay? When you think about Southeast Asia and the Bornean jungle, what are some animals that come to mind? What are some animals that are native to the jungles of Southeast Asia? Monkeys, yeah, certainly there are some monkeys in Southeast Asia. Monkeys, giraffe. Are there giraffes in Southeast Asia? Are you sure? Right. So which animals come to mind when you think about jungle animals in Southeast Asia? Right, you have your mouse deers, you have your monkeys, you have your apes, right? You have the great apes or orangutans, and you definitely have the four-footed mammals as well. When you think of the king of the jungle, what animal comes to mind when you think of king of the jungle? Can we a bit of biology over here for us? What animal comes to mind when you think of the king of the jungle? Okay, the gorilla, possible, right? You think of gorillas as king of the jungle. What other animals are the kings of the jungle? Lion. Lion. Do you see lions living in the jungle? Find me a jungle where there are lions in it. Amazon jungle? Amazon rainforest? Okay, so yeah, lions do not exist in the jungle. However, their counterparts, the other big cat in the conversation over here, tigers live in the jungle, right? So today we're taking a look at tigers living in Southeast Asia in the Malayan jungles. How have they existed over the past centuries and how are they still living now? The last, if I'm not wrong, the last native tiger found in Singapore was in the 1930s. Okay? The last native tiger found in Singapore was in the 1930s. After it was hunted and killed, there are no longer any native tigers left within Singapore. All of them are found in the Singapore Zoo. Okay, but back then, prior to the 1930s, there are tigers all over the jungle in Singapore and also in other parts of the Malayan Peninsula. Okay? And I believe if you're interested in finding more about biodiversity, you can visit the Lee Kong Chiang Natural History Museum. It has a very extensive collection about our natural biodiversity prior to our colonization by the British, right? During the British colonization, there was much animal trade being carried out. But prior to it, there was a rich biodiversity and history of native animals in the Singaporean jungles. Okay. Let's take a look at this question over here. While South America blank the largest rainforest in the world. Okay. Let's start off over here. While South America blank the largest rainforest in the world. Which question should it be? Which option should it be? This is subject-verb agreement. South America is a continent, right? Singular. It's just one continent. So it should be a singular verb. When South America is in the possession of the largest rainforest in the world, it blank the largest rainforest. It has the largest rainforest in the world. So let me just take this down. It has the largest rainforest in the world, known as the Amazon. Our part of the world is also home blank a similar habitat. So this is collocation over here. When our part of the world has something, it is home to. Okay, option P. Our part of the world is home to a similar habitat. In fact, the forests of Malaya have something even the Amazon blank not. Tigers. Okay. So once again, even the Amazon over here, the Amazon refers to the rainforest, subject-verb agreement. Amazon is singular or plural? It's uncountable, right? Referring to the entire rainforest, so it is singular. Even the Amazon does not. Tigers. Around the world, about 97% of the world's tigers were lost during the last century. 4 out of 9 species of tigers blank now extinct. Okay. Maybe we have some questions over here. When do we use numbers? When do we use numerals? And when do we spell out the numbers in our writing? You use numbers or the numerals when you are listing statistics or figures. When you're listing out statistics or figures, you need to use the numerals, not spell it out. However, the unit of measurement that follows after must be spelled out. You cannot use the percentage symbol. Okay. If you want to use numerals, they have to be used together with a unit of measurement that is being spelled out. So be careful of that in your writing as well, especially for secondary school and JC viewers over here who are doing formal writing for your argumentative or discursive essays. For tertiary students and above, I think this writing tip is something that you have already internalized, so I won't drone on this any further. 4 out of 9 species of tigers blank now extinct. 4 out of 9, right? So this is a plural for subject-verb agreement. 4 species. Just ignore the out of 9 over here. 4 species tell us that this is plural. Anyone disagrees? 4 species is plural. Now tells us the tense of this, right? What tense is this? Now is in the present tense. So we're looking for a verb over here that is of the plurals, that refers to a plural subject in the present tense. Which option should it be on the top of the page here? A verb referring to a plural subject in the present tense. It would be option B. They are now extinct. This is mainly due to a loss of habitat or poaching. Now, there are fewer blank 150 Malayan tigers left in the wild. Okay. This is a comparative over here. You need to fill this up with a comparative adverb. Okay. So for this comparative adverb, what should you be using over here? There are fewer than. Alright, next question. Then with an A or then with an E? Then with an A or then with an E? That is then with an A. Okay, that will be option M. You use then with an E to signify a sequence of events, one happening the other, the passage of time. However, option M, then, is used as a comparative adverb. 150 Malayan tigers left in the wild. They are considered close to extinction, blank, critically endangered. So critically endangered over here, the definition is to be close to extinction, right? So these two options here are interchangeable. You can use either of these options or these descriptions. So what conjunction do you use in the middle? What conjunction do you use to link together two interchangeable elements? It would be the conjunction of option L, or to be close to extinction or critically endangered. Unless forest habitats are protected and deforestation stops, the Malayan tiger blank become extinct sooner rather than later. Okay, so this is a rather bleak projection. Unless is conjunction being used over here to introduce an exception to the rule. So this must be in the future tense. Unless these habitats are protected and deforestation stops, in the future, sooner rather than later, extinction is a certainty for the Malayan tiger. Okay, so the future tense of become is what is the future tense over here for blank 35? It will become extinct. Okay. Well done for those who have gotten it right. As we proceed to the last few questions of this section over here. Presently, the illegal trade of tiger parts is the most crucial factor affecting the survival of the Malayan tiger. Even though poaching is illegal, it blank still ongoing as there is a high demand blank tiger parts. It blank still ongoing. It, what does this it refer to? This it refers to the act of poaching, the practice of poaching animals illegally, right? So poaching over here is a practice. It is defined with the singular verb is, right? We see right before the sentence leading up to it. Poaching is illegal. It is still ongoing. Okay, so this is. This should be option H. Is still ongoing, as there is a high demand blank tiger parts. Let me highlight it up. A high demand blank tiger parts. This preposition usage to demand for tiger parts. Delelele Wu has joined. Hi Chikitune. For tiger parts. A demand for is a phrasal verb to show there's a need for. So collocation. Words that go together. One main challenge to the conservation of tigers is that wild tigers are not all found blank just one place. Instead, they are scattered all over a large area of forest. Okay. So this is a preposition question. They're not just found blank. They're not all found blank just one place. So what preposition should go in over here? This is your chance to get in your answers. What preposition should take this blank? The options are on screen over here. We've already used the options that are highlighted. Among those that are non-highlighted, the 6 remaining options, which is the correct preposition here. It would be option G. They're not all found just in one place. Right? In fact, they are scattered all over a large area of forest. Any questions for our grammar close? Did any of you got all the answers correct? Did anyone get all the answers correct over here? Right? If you did, well done. Give yourself a pat on the shoulders. For those of you that perhaps did not manage to score the desired mark, don't worry. Take this as a practice to understand and to identify where your learning gaps are so that you can improve and work on them to avoid making the same mistake in the future. Any questions? If not, let's proceed with the final section for this practice paper, looking at the editing passage. Okay. Take note for your editing passage, there are 2 sections you need to take a look at. Let me write this down. Your editing passage will have 2 different types of errors showing up in the passage. The first kind of mistakes you'll get are spelling errors. Okay. Spelling in the form of repeated consonants, vowels like your A, E, I, O, U. How do you pronounce these vowels? Some words will have repeated letters in the middle. For example, spelling, if you spell it with one L in the middle, that is a wrong spelling of it. And even silent letters, right? Some words have silent words or letters at the end or the start of it. Okay. So these are the kinds of spelling mistakes that might show up in your editing passage. On the other hand, for grammar, the mistakes tend to take the form of either tense mistakes, when it should be in the present or instead of the past tense, or the past perfect tense. Tense mistakes, preposition mistakes, be testing you on your use of conjunctions, and occasionally even on subject-verb agreement, right? A singular verb for a singular subject, a plural verb referring to the plural subject. Okay. So these are just some of the more common grammar mistakes. However, anything that is tested in the previous section on your grammar MCQ is fair game to be tested here as well. Okay. So this is a non-exhaustive list. Some of these are the 4 more common types of grammar mistakes. However, other forms such as articles, determiners, and even if you're looking at word forms, these are also possible grammar mistakes that might show up in your editing passage. So be mindful and keep your eyes and ears peeled sharp as we go through the passage for today. Starting off with our first paragraph. Cassie and Annie are best friends. The two of them were inseparable. Okay, take note of the spelling over here, inseparable. In class, they sat side by side, went for recess together, and even went out together in weekends. What mistake is this under? This would be a preposition mistake, right? In weekends doesn't really fit the correct preposition over here. So what should be the correct preposition instead of in? Instead of in, it should be on the weekends. Okay? On weekends. Many thought that they were real sisters. 5 years ago, when Cassie was in primary 2, Annie was the new girl who had just transferred to the school in the second half of the year. Okay. This is a spelling mistake. What is the correct spelling of transferred? The correct spelling of transferred over here, there should be a double R in the middle. So it's transfer followed by an RED. Users, blank users have suddenly joined in like this section a lot. They just join in over here. Or like, is it normal? Or? Okay. So transferred is transfer along with an RED at the back. Okay? For many verbs, the past tense is just an ED added behind it. However, just take note for transfer over here is a special rule, a special condition over here. Transfer needs to have an additional R in the middle before the ED. Cassie's family had been living in New Zealand since 2017, despite of her mother's job. Okay, so this conjunction over here is used wrongly for grammar mistakes. They are living in New Zealand since 2017. The reason being her mother's job, right? So what conjunction should you be using over here? Which conjunction should you use to introduce a reason or to introduce a basis for this decision? If you're introducing a reason or explanation, which conjunction should be used? Okay. That would be the conjunction because of her mother's job. Because of her mother's job. They had only recently moved back from Singapore 4 months ago. Okay, so this is yet again another preposition mistake. Move back blank Singapore 4 months ago. So if move back or returning somewhere, what preposition should follow? That should be the preposition to Singapore 4 months ago. Cassie's form teacher had placed her in charge of introduce Annie to her classmates. This is a word form mistake. Place her in charge of. In charge of is followed by a noun. So this noun over here is the responsibility, right? So what form should this word be in? Should be introducing Annie to her classmates. Okay. When a verb or an action is to be read as a noun, it must be in the continuous form, followed by the explanation of what details go into the verb. Introducing Annie to her classmates. Initially, Annie was very quiet. Cassie would always try to begin a conversation with her. Spelling mistake. How do you spell conversation? How do you spell conversation? Would be starting with a C. Okay, cat lover is trying to use autocorrect. Okay, good try, but in the exams you can't use autocorrect, right? Not in PSLE, not even in other exams. Cannot rely on technology too much, right? I think we just saw recently for our school-going audience over here, the recent mobile guardian app on your school devices resulted in many of your notes not being able to be backed up, right? I think recently, even just just this morning, many O-level students were up in arms and were very distressed because all their notes that were backed up on Mobile Guardian now cannot be accessed, so they don't have their revision notes for their exams, right? Any O-level students or anyone in the chat over here experiencing problems with Mobile Guardian and your school mobile devices? Right? So some of us have definitely encountered this problem, not just for your school issued mobile devices, but also with other forms of technology. So while using autocorrect could be useful for a short pinch, you must always be able to internalize the actual rules so that you don't have to be reliant on technology. At the end of the day, you're relying on your brain, not on your computer, yeah? To begin a conversation with her, however, Annie could not be separated from her books. Okay, how do you spell separated over here? Okay, try not to use autocorrect this time, alright, cat lover? How do you spell separated? Okay, we have an answer coming in. Do the others agree over here? What do y'all think? Is separated spelled with an A? With an A? How many E's? How many A's? It's spelled Separated. Okay, yes, so good job, cat lover, for getting it right. Do you use autocorrect this time round? Okay, no answer. Okay, now, okay, I'm glad that you didn't manage to use autocorrect. You managed to answer it by yourself. Philans is back. I think Philans, you were here for yesterday's session as well with Miss Jamies. However, even if you don't have autocorrect, and even if you don't know how to spell separated, you can actually answer this question correctly. Do you know how? Read through the passage again, starting from the first line. How do you spell separated over here? Are there any clues in the passage that tell you how to spell separated? Are there any clues or any words in the passage over here that give you a hint or clue to answering the correct spelling of separated for question 45? Look closely in the first paragraph. Any words jump out at you as being similar to the word separated? Okay. Look closely at the first line. Cassie and Annie are best friends. The two of them were inseparable. Right? So inseparable is the antonym of separated. You could actually use this as one of your guiding posts to get the answer for question 45. Okay. So for students that did this paper in their school exams, I think they got a bit of a helping hand over here, right? The word is partially spelled out for them for one of the answers later on in the passage. So for those that were smart or those that were observant, you could actually solve for this answer using this as a very useful tip. Okay. However, this is the exception rather than the norm. For most schools editing passages, you'll be careful to avoid leaving any questions in that can be answered with the rest of the words. Okay, so be careful. This is just a anomaly. It doesn't really happen too often. Okay, but for those that manage to get the answer right by referring to this spelling over here, well done for being resourceful and thinking on your feet. Okay. Cassie found Annie's accent very strange. It took some time for her to get used to it. The moment Annie got used to her new environment, she managed to find her own friends and Cassie did not have. Okay. Environment over here, it is a misspelling, right? Because you think about it, when you're speaking or when you're saying the word environment in a Singaporean accent in Singlish, it tends to sound like this, being spelled like this. For example, you're talking about the environment very hot or the environment need to be conserved. You don't merely pronounce it like these. However, there are silent letters or ending consonants that are left out in our pronunciation of the word environment. Okay, so how do we actually spell environment? We cannot just solely rely on the pronunciation of it. We need to spell it out in full. Environ. Okay, so firstly, take note there's an N in the middle. Often we tend to leave it out or become silent, but there's always an N in the middle of environment. Environment, M-E-N-T. Environment ends with a T, but oftentimes when you're speaking quickly, especially if you speak in Singlish, you tend to leave out the ending consonants of the letter T in your words. Right? Environment, government, also spelled with a T at the end. However, tend to leave out the letter T when you're pronouncing the word. So be mindful of your pronunciation, especially for PSLE and O-level oral viewers over here who will be going for your oral exams very soon, if not already done so. Make sure you pronounce the ending consonants of words very carefully. This is the common point that oral examiners are looking out for, because many students who are brought up in Singapore who have used Singlish in their colloquial speech tend to leave out the ending consonants with the letter T. So be careful of this, alright? She managed to find her own friends, and Cassie did not have to accompany her anymore. Accompany here is spelled wrongly. How do you spell accompany? To accompany someone. How do you spell accompany? Accompany, A-double-C. So take note, A-double-C for accompany, alright? If the C's are read in order, they might sound as if it's only a single C. However, there is a double C in accompany. A double C O M P-A-N-Y. Okay, so company, but preceded with an A-C. Any questions for our editing passage so far? We'll move on to the last few questions over here before switching gears to the next paper, alright? The following year, both girls ended up in the same class again. They started to getting to know each other. This is a grammar mistake. What should the correct word form be? When you have a verb that follows to, the verb must be in what form? If the verb comes after to here, it must be in what form? Starting with letter B. This is something you learn in primary 1, yeah? A verb that follows after to must be in what form? Right, well done. This must be in the base form. So the base form of getting is get. Okay. So this is a pretty simple question. As I mentioned, this is something you learn in primary 1. However, the exam setters over here have done something very tricky. They purposely break the sentence up across 2 lines over here so that students do not immediately associate to with the base form rule. Okay, so very tricky over here. Be careful when you're doing your own editing passage as well. All the sentences are to be read together, even if they're broken up across different lines. Okay, so don't get tricked by this very cheap trick. They started to get to know each other better. Both realized they had similar interests. Similar, how do you spell similar? S-I-M-I-L-A-R. Similar interest. As a result, they choose to remain friends. Till today, their friendship remains strong. So we're not too sure how do you go about answering this question, but let's read on, right? Till today. What does till today tell us? Till today, this tells us that the sentence before this must be in the past tense, right? From the past until today. Can everyone follow so far? Till today is the conjunction that gives away that the previous sentence over here must be in the past tense, because what happened in the past is remaining the same until today. So this verb over here, choose, must be in the past tense. What is the past tense of choose? What is the past tense of choose? Is it choosed with an ed at the back? Yes? If not, what is the past tense of choose? It is chose, okay? So be careful over here once again. Choose is one of the rare English verbs where the past tense is not just changing the end with an ed. Rather, you need to change the vowels in the middle from choose to chose. Any questions? Any questions about editing passage in general, or previous questions you come across that you're not too sure about? Alright, if there are no questions, I think we have just enough time to switch gears on over to a second practice paper for today, which is from the Henry Park Primary School, Primary 5 end of year, back in 2023. Alright, so let's move over to our next paper. The previous paper where we just completed was the Primary 5 Maha Bodhi end of year 2023 paper. This paper that we're looking at right now is from P5 end of year 2023 from Henry Park Primary School. Okay, anyone from Henry Park Primary School in the chat over here? Anyone with any friends in Henry Park? Okay, if you have or you have come across this set of questions before, can go along as we go discuss the questions. Any questions along the way, or if you'd like to attempt any of the questions by yourself, please feel free to drop your answer in the chat so that we can discuss it together. Starting off with question 1 of our grammar MCQ. As always, grammar MCQ will have 10 questions. We'll have 10 questions. Number 1, yummy food as an answer already. Let's see if yummy food is correct. Okay. The display of fireworks blank, so spectacular that it left many spectators in awe. So there are two things we need to discuss over here. All four of our answers over here are all relating to the verb be, right? To be something, to carry the characteristic, to carry the quality or the feature of something, to be something. However, what is the difference? Okay. Looking at tenses, let's draw a line over here. Looking at tenses and looking at subject. Okay, thank you for the very in-depth explanation, yummy food. Let's go through the options one by one. Firstly, what tense is option 1 in? This is in the present tense. Anyone disagrees? Is referring to a plural or singular subject? It is referring to a singular subject. Okay, almost had a slip there. Likewise, are is also in the present tense, but it refers to a plural subject. For example, all of my classmates are in school today, right? So are refers to a plural subject. Same thing for tenses, was and were are both in the past tense. However, was is used for the singular subject, while were is used for the plural subject. Okay. Up to this point, anyone cannot follow? All good? Yeah, just to establish our fundamentals, just to refresh them so that they are at the front of our minds over here. Let's go back to the sentence over here. Starting with tense, right? Are there any clues in the sentence that tell us the tense? Any clues in the sentence that give us the tense? I think yummy food has correctly pointed out, right? We have left over here. Left, apart from being a direction left and right, left is also the past tense of the verb to leave, right? It's the past tense of the verb leave. Okay. So this gives us our first clue. Your verb over here must be in the past tense. Okay. That is our first clue, alright? Hope you're keeping a list of our clues. Our second clue looks at the subject. Is it a singular or plural subject? We see fireworks. And not just firework, but firework with an S behind it, right? So does that mean it's plural? Fireworks with an S, is it plural? Okay, if you think it's plural, read the question again. You're not looking at the fireworks in isolation, but rather the display of fireworks. Okay. The display over here takes precedence because that is the collective noun referring to the fireworks. It is uncountable. It is uncountable, and hence it should be read as the singular. So this is important rule that you need to take note of for questions like these about subject-verb agreement. When you have an uncountable, I have to write it in black. When you have an uncountable noun, it is taking the singular. Okay. Important rule to keep note. And with that, we have our two rules over here. We have the singular clue and the past tense clue. And the only one that fits both clues is option. Which option is the correct one? That is both in the past tense, referring to a singular subject. That is option 3, was. Okay, so well done for those who gotten it right. Well done, Yummy Food. And I also appreciate Yummy Food over here for the very succinct and also very clear explanation as well. Good job, Yummy Food. You must be very great at English. Okay, for anyone that's curious about what I'm talking about, I'm referring to this comment over here that was posted by Yummy Food. Very good at English, well done. Okay. Question 2. Question 2 is a quantifier question. Question 2 is a quantifier question. What is a quantifier? Okay. If any of our viewers over here had dropped in for our morning reading room session, we talked about having goals that are quantifiable. So for our reading room session, we talked about quantifier referring to measuring the amount of something. To count and to measure the amount of something. Okay. Despite having blank excellent reviews on the internet, the famous restaurant failed to live up to Jack's high expectations. Okay. Once again, we have few, little, much, and many. How do we use few, little, much, and many in a sentence? Okay. For uncountable, when you have uncountable, a small amount of an uncountable noun is little. For example, I have little patience for your complaining and whining. I cannot count your patience individually. So I have little patience, that means it's uncountable. I don't have a lot of patience left. On the opposite end is much. You should study hard because there isn't much time before the exam, right? There isn't much time. Okay, so little to much for small amount to large amount. On the other side, we have countable nouns, nouns that you can individually enumerate and count out. The differences are few for a small amount. Right? For example, I did well in my exams. I had few mistakes. I can individually count out the mistakes that I made. So there are few mistakes in my exams. Okay. On the other hand, for larger amounts, you have many. For example, I received many red packets during Chinese New Year, right? So I can individually count out the red packets I received. I received a large amount of them. That would be many. So let's go back. With this in mind, let's go back to our question over here. Firstly, we should identify the noun over here. Is it countable or uncountable? What is our noun? It is reviews, right? Can you count reviews? You certainly can count reviews, right? If you go online shopping on Shopee, you can see the reviews that people have put in. If you go on Google Maps to check out a review of a restaurant, you can count out how many reviews this restaurant received. Okay, so we are up to this point over here. We've reached the first step. It's countable. Anyone disagrees? Anyone thinks that reviews are uncountable? Okay, so reviews are countable, right? So are we talking about a few, or are you looking at many reviews over here? We have to read the rest of the sentence. Despite having excellent reviews on the internet, the famous restaurant failed to live up to high expectations. Okay. So what does it mean when something fails to live up to high expectations? When something is not living up to high expectations, something is doing poorly, right? It's bad. Okay. Something that did or performed poorly. If you did not live up to your expectations during the exams, that means your results were not great. They were poor. Okay. So if they did poorly, that means they had blank excellent reviews despite having many excellent reviews. Okay. Right, good job once again for Yummy Food getting the right answer. Option 3, right? Many excellent reviews. Okay. Alright, so be careful. You might have gotten the right answer, but make sure you write the correct number in the blank over here. If you got your answer option, if you got the answer many, but you write the wrong number over there, like number 2 or number 1, unfortunately for MCQ, there are no working marks. Unlike there are no method marks, you will just be scored 0 for this question over here. Alright, so make sure if you get the correct answer, write the correct number in the blank. Otherwise, you will not score marks for your working. Alright. Question 3. Oh, it's a bit late. I think question 3 we can leave it for the next session. Okay, but as you can see, some of us already have our answers up for question 3 already. If you want to join in for our next session starting off and after our lunch break, you can take a screenshot of questions 3 to 5 and then you can work on them over the break. Once you're ready, you can join back in later in an hour's time to start with your answers and explanations also. Okay, I see some viewers already have the answer for question 3. Questions 4 and 5 also are not simple at all. Okay, so be careful with questions 4 and 5 as you work on them throughout the break. And once again, for those who are interested, we are looking at the P5 end of year 2023 Henry Park Primary School paper. We're taking a look at 4 sections for grammar MCQ, vocab MCQ, vocab close, grammar close, and if time permits after our next session, we will be looking at the editing passage as well. Okay. So if you're interested to attempt this paper or to have the notes on hand, either you print it out or you refer to it on your mobile devices, you can try to find these notes online. I cannot state directly where you can find these notes, but I trust that all of you are resourceful enough in this day and age to be able to find these online notes. So you can work on there also and think, or maybe even just skim through it briefly so you have a greater understanding or a handle about what we'll be looking at over the next live stream session. Alright? If you have any questions along the way about some of the questions, or if you have any burning questions or difficulties, take a note of them, and later on when we continue, make sure you drop them in the chat so that we can answer them together with the rest of the chat. Alright? Okay. Otherwise, thank you very much for everyone who has stayed on for today's noontime live stream. We'll be taking a short break over here for the next hour or so, but stay tuned. We'll be back for at around 2:30 to continue on with the rest of this paper. Okay, so take this 1 hour break or so to have your lunch if you haven't already, get refreshed, continuing on with some of your other work if you have homework to complete, or maybe if you have additional time, take a sneak peek at the rest of this paper over here so that you can come in equipped and fully prepared to tackle the questions together with us. Right? Thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for your comments and your active participation. I'll see you all very shortly at 2:30. Alright, stay tuned. Bye-bye. Brunch. Yep, okay, have a hearty lunch also. So and make sure you're well rested and well fed for the next section of the paper. Okay, bye-bye.